Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Lifeonaire Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo, and we are here with Ken Holmes. And now, many of you already know Ken because he's been around the Lifeonaire community for, gosh, man, like since the beginning, really, 12, 13 years now. He was a member of the original Flip Vips. So many of you will remember Steve Cook talking affectionately about the Flip Vips. Now, the Flip Vips was a group of 11 people that Steve hand selected as being really heavy hitters, rock stars in their own niche, most of which were doing flipping at that point, hence the name Flip Vips. But not only because he wanted to assemble an incredible group of people that could all learn from each other and grow, but also he himself wanted to learn from these people and grow as well. And Ken is the person who is, I would say, quite honestly, is the real estate expert within Lifeonaire. I mean, I think you've even done more than Steve, Ken. And so you really are somebody that is an authority in this field. You've done or seen basically it all. I've heard your story and how you kind of started even as an appraiser, and then you kind of evolved into real estate, and you kind of went from like, working for somebody else to realizing that flipping houses was way more lucrative, way more fun, more profitable, allowed you to control your freedom a little, your schedule a little bit more than appraisal. And now it's interesting because you've made another transition, which is, I'll tell you, a little bit because you've done, I mean, you were a flipper for how long?
20 years.
20 years as a flipper. And now, like, every time I talk to you, you're like rubbing it in my face, like, of how fun storage is and how lucrative it is. Yeah. And you're like, you've told me before, you're thinking of shutting down, or maybe you already have shut down your flipping business. Tell us about that.
Yeah. It's funny because I've heard Mike Wagner, I learned all this from Mike Wagner, and I hear him talk about why he got into storage, and what he talks about is the lower expense ratios. Like, I used to have a bunch of rental houses, and the expense ratio on a rental house is 40, 45%, sometimes 50% of all of your rent goes out the door for expenses. And so he said that's what really attracted him, but that's not what attracted me at all. In fact, I don't even know if I realized that until after I was in storage for a while. What attracted me was the ability to systemize it very quickly. Like you said, I've been in business since 1993. And I've tried a lot of different things. I've always been flipping houses, but I ran some lease options. I've done some new construction. I ran a property management business. I've done all these different things. And, when you start them, you tend to do a lot of the stuff yourself. And then slowly you want to kind of maybe I'll get rid of bookkeeping, and then I'll hire an admin, and you're trying to work your way out of work. And it's, takes a while, and you can't always get there. Like in my flipping business, I could never work myself totally out of the work there. I just never got to that point where I could trust other people to make some of the decisions involved in it. But what I saw in storage was the ability to go to systems very quickly. That's really what attracted me. When I talk about my storage business now, I'm on my 5th facility, and I've never rented a unit. I guess I could, but I'd be scared if somebody wanted me to do it because I've never done that. I've never been really involved in day-to-day operations at all. And so that's really what attracted me more than anything. I've been flipping houses for 20 years, and it did get me freedom in my life. It did make me good money. My family's been fed. I was happy with it, but it's a treadmill. You always got to buy the next house and just keep turning out product and all of that. And you guys know that in my vision, Gina and I want to move in about another year or so. When our son graduates from high school, we're gonna make a move. And the thought of starting a new flipping business in another town just did not appeal to me at all. Just starting from, could I do it? Yeah. But boy, I didn't. I had no desire to do that. So I was looking for something, and I wanted something I can systemize and get my work level down. I wanted something that brought in, monthly income. I really was hoping I could find something that would be location independent. So if we traveled more or whatever, I wouldn't have to worry about it. And this business provides all that. And so that's why I'm all in on it. I really I enjoy it. It's lucrative, and it has everything that I wanted in a business.
So you've basically shut down all of your other investing interests, and you're shifting towards storage.
Yeah.
And
We quit, we stopped rehabbing houses kind of when Corona hit last year. And it wasn't really like a I'm done decision. I expected to rehab houses for most of 2020. But I was a little concerned on the liability front. People at your house working, the plumber catches Corona from the carpenter, I get sued. And so we took a break, and that went on for a month, went on for another month. And I just came to the realization that we were okay without it. I had intended to, I knew I was going to storage, period. It was so much better. But I intended to put more money in the bank, do another year of flipping. But honestly, once I tasted it, once I went 3 months without it, and I saw that we were fine, and I saw what my life looked like, there was no going back at that point. Life's just better this way. There's no other way to say it. There's a lot less stress, a lot less demanding phone calls that I must attend to. I just don't have that in my life at the moment.
Right. Man, well, it sounds amazing. And every time I talk to you, I get excited about it as well. Tell us a little bit about the process. Clearly, it's a little bit different, where the acquisition of a deal is, from what you've told me, sounds like the acquisition and then that first initial period of getting this thing up and running is really where all the work is. And then after that, you're kind of on cruise control. Is that accurate? And if so, tell us what that looks like.
It's pretty accurate. If you compared it like I did to the house flipping business, in today's market, it's kind of hard to find a house to flip, but you can do it if you put your mind to it. And the same thing in self-storage. It takes some work to find a deal, but I don't need as many deals. 1 or 2 deals a year is ample for me compared to how many I had to find in the house flipping business. And then it's the same thing. There's the due diligence before you buy it, and then there's some contractor work after you buy it. There's normally the storage facilities we're buying are going to need some contractor work, whether it's building a new building or putting up a fence or putting in a new gate, or, I had one where I spent thousands of dollars on gravel and grading and, things like that. So there's that period when you have some contractors. But then rather than selling it at that point, you're going to own it for a while. Most of the deals I've done so far have basically been like a house flip, in that I bought low, fixed, sold high, but the sell high might be 2-3 years down the road. When I buy it, it's not full, don't have many tenants, needs all this work. And so I get everything fixed, but tenants just don't all rush in on day one when you get everything fixed. And they move in 4 this month, 5 next month. And so it takes a while to get full. So basically every month your cash flow is getting better and better and better. And the point at which you sell, unlike a house, you sell when you make it look good. On a storage facility, you sell it when the numbers look good. You have to produce a good, solid net operating income. That's what they're buying. They're buying the net operating income. And so if you were to get to the right net operating income in February, you still haven't proved it until you've had it in March, April, May, June, July. The people who are going to buy these things, they're a little more sophisticated than a house buyer. They need to see 6 months data, 12 months data of what is this thing really producing. And so you wind up owning it for a while, but that period from when I get done with the contractors till when I get ready to sell it, very easy on the whole, especially on my time. I'm not saying nothing ever comes up that I have to deal with. It does here or there, but not much. And day-to-day operations, like I say, I'm just not involved in them at all. So I'm watching over the marketing, and if something comes up, I have to make a decision and deal with it or whatever. But there's not a whole lot to do on an average week.
So, man, I got as you're talking, question after question is popping into my head here. So the first thing is, you mentioned basically these are almost like rehab properties for you. So you're doing a value add, you're getting and the value add is established through improving the net operating income, the consistent net operating income,
right?
And then you're selling it, and then you're pocketing the difference, and then it sounds like you're probably rolling those profits into another deal. Are you now? And the reason you're selling it, is that because based on the value, it no longer makes sense to keep, and your return isn't what you want? Because I know one of the things I want to get into here too is you have no cash in these deals, and that's a phenomenal thing in and of itself. I want to talk about that later. Why? But what is it? Is it that you're trying to build up? What's your strategy with this? Why are you selling it?
Sure. That's a great question. I set a goal coming in to do it with no money. One, my money was invested elsewhere. And two, I just wanted to prove it could be done. There really wasn't anybody around Mike Wagner doing deals debt-free. You know that I'm a real advocate of that, of doing deals debt-free. And so I just wanted to, I set a goal to, get $10,000 a month in cash flow in 5 years. Okay. So without using any of my own money. So how do you do that? So basically I'm buying the first round of facilities using all investor money, and we'll eventually sell the first round of facilities. And then I can take the cash that's mine, which could be $300,000, $400,000, or $500,000 from the sale, and I'll invest that into a next round of facilities, which I will structure differently. I'm still not going to borrow any money. I might bring, if I don't have enough cash to buy it with cash, I'll bring some investors in, but I'll structure it a little differently. And so what happens is, let's say, for example, the first deal I bought in Hinesville, we bought it for $400,000, and I needed about $40,000 more for repairs and stuff like that. And so I got all that money from the investors. We invested the money, kind of got it going, but on the first month, we lost $500 in cash flow, even debt-free, losing money. And then it slowly got better. But their return on investment for year one, it just sucked. It really wasn't any good at all. Year two was way better. By the end of year two, we were making over $8,000 a month cash flow. So we'd gone from negative cash flow to $8,000 a month in cash flow in 2 years. So they did way better in year two. And again, I'm just splitting this 50-50 with the investors all the way through, the cash flow and the upside. So when we're making 8,000, I'm getting 4, they're getting 4. And so on 400 grand, they're still not doing that great. So I kind of have to sell it in order for my investors to come out. Like I was doing fine. I'm basically not doing any work, making 4 grand a month. Could be worse. But my investors, in order for them to get the yield that I want them to get, if you haven't been on my real estate calls, Jason, but all the ones here who have been, I preach over and over again that if you take care of your investors, you can get all the money you want in this business. And I believe that to be true. Well, the only way to take care of my investors is to sell it. When I sold it, and we sold it for over $1 million, then their portion of the profit plus the cash flow put them up at a 30% rate of return rather than the single-digit rate of return they had been making on cash flow. So I'm selling the first, basically you buy the first round, fix it up, get the cash flow up, sell it. I take my portion of that cash, invest in more deals. I will structure those more on a long-term hold. That was my basic strategy.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So it's basically you're building up your own cash from these deals, as well as building your experience. And so that each subsequent deal after that, you have more and more cash into until essentially you own the whole thing yourself, and there's no investors involved at all. If you choose to,
or something close to it. We'll see what comes down the pike. there's so many ways that you can do these deals with investors. I don't really worry about it. Do I have to own them all? Just me? I don't, it's not really about that. I want to own the least amount of facilities to get the cash flow I want, so that my work level is as low as it can be.
Yep.
So we'll just kind of see how it plays out.
And so at some point, is there any value to you to buying a property that is already fairly rehabbed and is just the easy button, or do you really enjoy the value add portion of it?
It really depends on how much you're into growth mode. If you want to grow, if you want to start with zero money and then get to good cash flow, you've got to get value add to get the growth. Mm-hmm. Once you have all the money you need and you just want to park it and make a good rate of return, storage is still a fine investment and very, very easy to run. Or if people are into using leverage, you can get SBA loans on these things at 5% with a 30-year amortization. It's kind of hard to mess that up if you buy, a good solid deal that's making 8.5%, 9%, put down 20 and get a loan like that. That's a double-digit rate of return. I don't do debt, but there's plenty of people who do.
Yeah.
So there's a variety of different ways to structure these things. But my first round here, it's all about growth. And in order to get growth, I've got to deal with buying one in bad shape and suffering through that first year with no cash flow to get the equity.
What kinds of things are you looking for when you're trying to find a deal, like to know that there's a value add? Are you looking for, maybe the poor management, or they have no marketing, or what are some hot buttons for you that you're like, ooh, this might be something I'm interested in?
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is you look at it and you say, wow, if this thing was run right, the cash flow should be this. Well, it's not that now for whatever reason. And it could be any of those things. It could be poorly managed. It could be no one's repairing it. It could be lack of a decent website. Or it could be too much competition in the area. Whatever it is, you find one and you see it and you say, that cash flow should be here, but it's down here. What's wrong? And can I fix that? And that's basically a yes or no question. Once you determine what's wrong, if it's too much competition, if they're overbuilt, I can't fix that. There's nothing I can do to get that cash flow up. The market's saturated. But if it's like you said, lack of a website, they're still living in 1989 and paper leases, no website, no marketing, no way for people to rent online and all the new stuff. Well, I can fix that. And I know how much that costs. It's no different than me looking at a house and saying it needs a roof and it needs a new kitchen. I can fix that too. I'm not going to actually do any of that work. I'm going to write checks. Well, same thing on the storage. I'm going to find somebody and write them a check and get it fixed. And so if I feel like I can fix it, then I say, okay, if I can get it from this here now to up here later, then I'm in. But it really just comes down to what is the problem and can I fix it? If I can fix it, then I'm interested.
Got it. We have a couple questions here we can take. So Mary asks, do you have to pay capital gains taxes when selling versus a 1031?
Well, it's going to be one or the other. Yeah, it's going to be one or the other. When we sold my first one in Hinesville, I walked away with a pretty sizable check, and I did not 1031 because along with our plan of moving, Gina and I want the house we're going to live in where we move is going to be way more expensive than where I currently live. And so I just wanted to bank that chunk of change. So we'd be in a better position to try and pay all cash when we move. And so I'm paying capital gains on. It's long-term capital gains. So that's 15% on the Fed level. So it's not as bad as your normal tax rate, but I'm going to pay. It's either that or 1031. I don't know any other way to get around it. I mean, we could get into opportunity zones, but there's people smarter than me that can talk to you about that. But on the whole, yeah, I've either got a 1031 or I've got to pay the piper.
Gotcha. Okay. Dean Louise asks, how do you know how much money to get from the investors at the start to have enough money to cover the losses until you start positively cash flowing?
Well, Dean, that's a very astute question. I've got my sales price, and then I've got my repair budget, and then I've got my budget for negative cash flow. Well, how long are we going to have negative cash flow? I'm running projections. I could share my screen, but basically it's a spreadsheet where I say right now I've got 30 tenants when I buy it out of 170 units. I need 45 tenants before we break even based on the average rental. And so how long is that going to take? I know from experience that it's going to be 2 or 3 months before my marketing efforts really kick in. So I don't count on much happening for 2 or 3 months. And then I start thinking, okay, I expect to average 4 move-ins net. We call them net move-ins. If you might have 6 people move in and 2 move out, I expect to average 4 a month or 5 a month or 3 a month. And a lot of that's based on experience. And again, I had Mike Wagner help me with all this. And so I relied a lot on his experience when I was getting going. And so I'm going to run those projections and I'll see how long it'll take me to get to break even. And then for me, I'm basically going to double that, to be safe. I'm going to double that to be safe so I don't have to worry about if it goes slow or whatever. I'd rather have more money in the bank than less, That's another thing about self-storage. I was talking to a guy yesterday about it, and I said, one of the things I like the most is your repair budget. When you're looking at your repair budget, I've had them as low as 25,000. I've had them as much as 170,000. But the deals are so big, you can afford to use big time, top notch contractors. You don't have to chintz. In the house business, you're not going to buy get the biggest plumber in town with 10 trucks or whatever. He's going to be so much money. You're going to try to get a little cheaper guy, but then that's the guy who maybe doesn't show up on Thursday like he was supposed to because his dog died and whatever. You can afford the good guy in storage. If your repair budget is 50,000 or 70,000, does that really matter? If you're taking a property that you bought for $500,000 and you're making it worth $1 million, is that 20,000 really all that important? It's not really. So you have the opportunity to hire really good people. I'm running these things remotely. I'm 8 hours from my closest facility, so it's nice to be able to afford to hire the best, have the best people do the work. People who will come back and fix it if it's not right, things like that. I've really, from flipping houses all these years and trying to save $1 anywhere I could to not having to really worry about that. And that's the same thing I'm doing on my negative cash flow budget. I'd rather raise an extra $5,000 in my budget. And that, it could be a $500,000 budget. What's raising another $5,000? You know what I mean? To be safe.
So one thing I'm hearing as you're talking, there's gotta be a switch in thinking how you think about the deals when you go into the storage versus the single family homes, right? There's the way you're thinking about it. So my question to you is, if somebody were to go and look to invest in storage facilities, like the first time, he's a brand new kind of person, never did a storage unit, how would they go about doing that? What should they be looking for? What would you recommend?
I mean, in general, with the model that I use, which like I said, I learned all this from Mike Wagner, is the model he uses. We don't go to the big cities. In the big cities, there's a lot of competition from big name public storage, the REITs, big money, big corporations that think a 6% rate of return is good. And there's a lot of competition there, and not only competition for your units and competition to buy and sell facilities, but competition in the marketing arena. Your pay-per-click cost in a city could be $30-something a clip, where sometimes I'm paying $3 or $4 a clip in the smaller markets. And so, I'm looking in the smaller, and when I say smaller, I'm, 50,000 people down to maybe 10,000 people, markets of that size. So I'm going there. And, the basic thing that we're doing most of the time is if you think about it, self-storage has only really been around maybe 50 years. And so this is really the first time, the last decade is really the first time there's been an opportunity to flip anything. We're just now getting older facilities, a lot of the ones we're buying were built in the 1990s, early 2000s. And so, mom and pop built it 30 years ago. They loved it, took care of it. It did them really well, but they're still dealing with it old school. Like I said, the place really needs $40 or $50 or $60,000. It needs a website. It needs good marketing. It needs one of the fancy gate systems with the keypads. They're going out there every day and unlocking the gate at 7 in the morning and locking it again at 7 at night. It needs to get away from paper leases. It needs all that. They know it, but they don't want to learn it. And they're ready to sell and move on. And so that's really the target, the older ones that, need all that stuff done. That's what we're looking for.
I like that. So for my conversation with some of the people, I'm hearing that most of these storage facilities are being bought up somewhere down south. Like I have yet to hear, or maybe this is from my limited knowledge, that I hear a lot of people up north. Huh?
It would be your limited knowledge.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not just.
It's not new.
Yeah. Same old. Cooch has got one in Detroit, dude, or
us. Okay.
Or Flint. Cooch has got one in Flint.
Peter lives in that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
The guy, like I said, I credit my success to my relationship with Mike Wagner. I looked at storage 15 plus years ago and decided I didn't like it. And I don't think I would have liked it back then. The technology that makes my life possible now, the great life that I'm telling you about, where I don't have to do any work, that wasn't the case 15 years ago. And so without meeting Mike and getting to know him and have him help me learn, I don't think that I would be doing it. So everything's different now. That there's so much technology that really makes it. A third of our customers are renting a unit without talking to a human. They just go online and rent. They pay, they sign the lease, everything. We just wake up to an email. Oh, look, somebody rented a unit last night. That's it.
Are there industry kind of standards for, like, I guess I'm assuming there is, for tenure for a rental period? Like, so the average person rents for 3 months, and that'll help you make your projections as far as your net rent adjustments for people added versus people leaving, and you can start to do your calculations based on industry norms.
If you're asking how long the average tenant stays, that varies some by the size of the unit. People who rent a 5x5 or a 5x10, because of its size, they can only put so much stuff in there. And so it's easy for them to make a decision. Oh, I'm just going to get that stuff back out or whatever and move on. Somebody who rents a 10x20 or a 10x30, they can get a lot of stuff in there. And so the decision to leave is a harder decision because that's a lot of stuff to deal with. And so the length of tenancy is longer on those on the whole. I've heard people say the industry norm is 9 months or whatever. I'm experiencing, as far as I can tell, a little longer than that. I've only been doing it 3 years, and the longest I've owned a facility is 26 months. But I had plenty of people that were renting at Hinesville when I bought it, and they were renting at Hinesville when I sold it 26 months later. You can, if with the right marketing and with the right supply and demand, a lot of people will guess that they might have 3, 4, 5 move-ins a month. A lot of us use those numbers. But then again, the vast majority of people have done better than that.
Well, and where I was getting with that question is like, I think for a lot of people, one potential factor of fear that may influence people's decision to get into storage would be the numbers. Like it's a little bit higher, not necessarily, but some people do. I think Hinesville, you said was three something you bought it for. Yeah. So that's not astronomical, but some other properties, 5, 6, 8, $1 million, right? It's a little scarier. And then the other factor I think that people might think of or kind of be worried about is like, are people going to rent this thing? And how quickly can I get to, if so, how quickly can I get them up to speed? And so that's where I guess, Mike Wagner, the guy who coached you as well as a lot of other Lifeonaires, did a 2-hour training. He mentioned, I believe he said the industry average is like somewhere between 6 and 8 square footage of storage per person. Is that accurate? Did I misquote that?
Yeah, 7 to 8.
Okay.
Is supposedly the average.
And that's saturation point?
Yes, in theory.
Okay.
That's what the market needs. More than that would be saturated. I think it's higher in the South. We don't have basements and we have more smaller houses and more mobile homes. I think it's higher. Up north, they have basements. Mm-hmm. But it's really that market. I mean, I've seen markets where there was 12, 14 square feet per person and every one of them is full. For some reason, there's, high demand there. So really part of your due diligence, and again, another thing that I love about storage is how much time you get. In the house business, I basically ride over to somebody's house and 20 minutes later, I make them an offer. In this business, I can get under contract and I can have 45 days, sometimes 60 days to make a decision where I can still get all my money back. So there's a lot of time to really dig in and be sure before you actually put your money at risk. So when I'm doing my due diligence, I'm really looking at all the competition. I'm actually going to every single, when I make my site visit, I spend more time on the road looking at the other facilities than I do looking at the facility I'm thinking about buying. It's just a bunch of metal buildings. I mean, it doesn't take you that long to look at it. I'm looking at the market. This facility over here, how big is it? How full are they? What are they charging? What kind of marketing are they doing? And then I go to the next one. Then I go to the next one. To think that, let's say, like when I bought my facility and my first one in Mississippi, it was only 20% full, but all the other facilities were pretty doggone full. And so in your mind, you sit there and you say, wow, what if I stay here at 20% full while they stay over there at 90? But that's really not realistic. There's X amount of demand. I mean, the worst thing that could happen would be I pull a little from them and they go down to 85 while I go up to 85. You know what I mean? To think you're not going to get any is stupid. Plus, with the website we're using, many times, none of my competition has the ability to rent online without talking to a human. Most of the time, you got to call. Many times, you got to meet somebody at the site. So our website is better. I think our marketing is just as good, if not better. So really, it's to think, oh, no one's going to rent mine. That's not right. It's like you say, well, if they're full, what are they doing? And can I be at least that good? And a lot of times in these small markets, you're like, yeah, I can beat. And there's 8 competitors and 4 of them are doing nothing for market. Just not that. Like I said, if you stay in the unsophisticated markets, your competition isn't that much of a worry.
Got it. We got some more questions here. So Dean also has a question for someone's first deal. Would you do a hybrid model of development and value add through things like operational improvements, or just look at the value add?
I would just look at the value add. Development, building ground up, really isn't as lucrative. There's so much cost in development. Engineering and, just the whole dealing with the government. And then you're starting off with no tenants at all. Well, how long do you get break even when you start with none? Development is what development is. And it's the reason I don't do it. I mean, I've done development, but I hate it. Too much government. These long waiting periods for someone to tell you yes, waiting on the construction and all that. And it's not that dang lucrative. I mean, it's the value add is more lucrative. There are occasions when you might buy a storage facility that say it has 3 buildings, but there's room for 2 more buildings. I'd do that because that's not the same as just buying a hunk of land and starting from scratch. It's already zoned. Many times it's already fenced. Many times it's already got stormwater retention if you need it or whatever. And so it's a lot less work, and it's not so timely. I mean, I know people who have bought a facility like that, and the first 3 buildings aren't full, and so they've got time to fill those up. They got time to fiddle with the government and get all their permits and everything figured out. While they still have some money coming in, rather than being no income coming in. So like the one I'm about to close on now, there's an extra piece of land there. And I thought real hard about building more buildings on it. It was too much work. I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to deal with the whole government process. I'm just converting it into parking. It's a lot less work. I can get some value add out of that. But honestly, it's not in my vision to build new construction if I can get out of it.
Gotcha. Well, and so, I think she was referring to like adding more buildings. And it would seem like the process, I could be wrong here, but after building houses, by comparison, I would assume that building storage is fairly straightforward, pretty simple.
Yeah. The process is getting the permits.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The building is very easy. You're basically buying a kit. And so you've got a GC, he does all the grading, gets it ready, puts a slab there, and then they can come in and throw kit up in 4 or 5 days. They feel like it. There's not a whole lot to them. They're if you're not doing climate control, they're very, very simple buildings.
Is that your preference, non-climate control?
It's all I've done. I'm not against climate control, but I have not run into an opportunity that had that in there. But climate control doesn't scare me. You're not putting a unit for every 10 by 10 doesn't have an AC system. It's all going through the roof. And so basically you might have 1, 2, 3 units powering a whole building, and it's just going through, they're not necessarily making it 72 in there. If it's 95 degrees outside, it's taking the edge off, but it's not, totally getting it down to what you want your house at. So it's a relatively simple system, one long duct going like that, it doesn't scare me. I haven't done it yet, but I would.
Well, I also wonder, this is a little off topic, but could the addition of climate control be a value add proposition where, and I don't know, I'm making these numbers up, but it's going to cost you, $20,000 for your unit. And by the way, I have no idea if that's even market. I have no idea if that's accurate, but you're going to get, an extra $1,000 a month for rent increases for your units. Like, is that, what I mean? Like you have to run some numbers, but maybe that's even in some cases a viable option for a value add opportunity. So
it could be the standard 1-story construction doesn't really have room for ducts in it. So you kind of got to go in with that plan. I've seen conversions that have it. I've seen people rig it
doesn't work.
Very obvious and unattractive. They probably rent. But it'd be better to go in with that plan.
Gotcha.
that, I think converting to that, I've yet to see one that I thought looked good. I'm not saying it can't happen, but the roof level is so low.
Okay, we got a bunch of more questions. So got one here from Ross. He's asking, how do you structure the private money partners? How you structure those deals with them?
What I've done on mine is it's a straight 50-50. I've got the deal. I'm going to run the deal. They put up the money. We split the cash flow 50-50. We split the profit 50-50. Just straight and simple. We split the cash flow when it comes in. So it's a debt-free deal for me. If we don't have any cash flow, I don't owe anybody any money. As we get money, we divide it up. And so when I'm running the deal, I've got an escrow for taxes, a self-escrow, because, there's no debt on the property, but I've got escrow for taxes, escrow for insurance. I'll often have a kitty for repairs, a CapEx account. And then the money comes in and I basically pay out what's above that, or usually I'll leave like $5,000 in the account. So I've got escrow plus 5,000, and then every quarter I pay out whatever's above that, and it just comes down to whatever percentage they have in the deal. So if, let's say I need to raise $500,000 and somebody invests $100,000, I'm in the deal 50-50 with the investors. So the investors have 50%. If someone puts up 100,000 of 500,000, they have 20% of 50%. So they get 10% ownership in the deal. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right. And so when we write checks, if there's, $15,000 in the account to write checks out for cash flow, they'll get $1,500.
Gotcha. And is there any states, Lucas asks, are there states you recommend avoiding? But I'm curious along those lines, you're pretty much just looking for the deal, right? And you're not necessarily, because you can run it remotely, you don't necessarily care where it is.
Pretty much. It was funny, we were having this discussion in the Storage Rebellion board yesterday, but I wouldn't buy a facility in California. I don't trust the government there. One of the good things about storage is that, like, when all this was going on in COVID and the landlords with apartments and houses did not have the ability to evict, and yet people were not paying them, that did not affect us because we're not under that law. We're under lien law, which is a whole different law. And so we weren't affected by that at all. But I don't trust a state like California not to do that to you. So I'm looking for a business-friendly state on the whole, which is another reason why I like the South on the whole. The South is pretty business-friendly. But I don't worry about it too much. I just would be a little careful in some of the states who basically let it be known that they're anti-business.
I like how he's being very strategic how he says it.
Yeah, right.
Certain business.
I don't care who's in power, but there's you just see what they like. Like I said, I love California. That's one of my favorite states. I was born in California, but I would not do business there. They just will turn, change things anyway.
All right, next question. Do you put each storage facility into a separate legal entity? That's from DN.
Yes, the way it's like I said, for my first round where I'm basically flipping these things, every deal gets a brand new LLC. And so when the investors invest the money, they buy their percentage of that LLC just prior to closing with their investment. And then the LLC buys the property. And so that's the way it is. Like, and so when we sold Hinesville and that deal was done, I just shut that LLC down. It's all,
dissolved,
gave everybody all the money and it's all done.
Gotcha. Well, and so since a lot of what we talked about here, a lot of the work involved is in finding the deals. On Mike, so Mike Wagner did his 2-hour training that was free. So hopefully everyone here had a chance to listen to that. Otherwise, go on over to the app. You'll find the replay. what's some of the specific marketing that you have found effective? Like, I know Mike already mentioned all the websites, so you don't have to rehash through those, but have you, like, what kind of things above things that are listed have you found fruitful?
Well, you say things that are listed, but there are listed, and by listed, we mean listed with a broker who specializes in self-storage. There's several of them, Marcus and Millichap, some of these people, that's all they do nationwide. They specialize. Now that's listed. There's other ones that are for sale by somebody that doesn't know what they're doing and doesn't know how to market them. We found good deals on the basic realtor MLS. You know, there's a commercial section in your house MLS real estate thing. My buddy Scott Smith bought one in Texas, just listed on the MLS. And I mean, he was telling me about it. And I basically said, you need to hang up the phone with me and like get that, like that list price is great. Just go buy, just go buy it. And because they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what they were doing. The one I have under contract right now, same thing. It was listed on the MLS. And that's not how I found it, but and I love the broker. She's been very nice and very helpful, but they could have got $100,000, $200,000 more if they'd listed it with someone in the business. And so there are ways to look for things that are listed that aren't listed properly and with the right people. And then of course there's the unlisted properties that are not for sale. Again, this isn't that much different than the house business. In the house business, you can go to the MLS. How likely are you to get a deal right now? It can happen, happens all the time, but it's very hard because that's where everybody's looking. The ones that do the extra effort to do their own marketing to try to talk to off-market properties are the people who do better. And so ever how you do that, and there's different ways that I have done that. I've done it myself. I had a realtor guy that was helping me and helped me buy some deals. I'm about to start a big mail campaign. There's a lot of different ways to do that. I mean, I see people touting, driving for dollars. I mean, you can drive for dollars on storage. You can drive for dollars on Google Earth. Go to a little town and look around. I mean, they look like 3 little long buildings in a row. You can see them on Google Earth. And if you see one and it's not on Google Maps, it doesn't have a Google My Business, but it's obviously storage, you can click on street maps. Maybe it looks old, beat up, shut down. Maybe there's an old sign with, I don't know, a phone number on it. You call these people. It's sleuthing. It's no different than, if you're looking for apartments, you're looking for houses, you're looking for storage. With the market like it is, you got to do a little work. But what I like is that, 2 deals a year. I mean, there's people that buy more. I've been basically buying about 2 deals a year. And that's been very lucrative for me. And it has not been near as hard as flipping 10 rehabs a year, which was, I'm making more money on way less work.
Well, man, I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. So we're kind of running out of time here. If someone wants to learn more about this, where's the best place to look?
The Storage Rebellion website. I think it's storagerebel.com. That's where Mike Wagner and all of us that are part of his system, that's where we are. It's free to get on the app, start hanging out and learning. So that'd be the place I would start. There's also YouTube. Mike Wagner and Storage Rebellion have a bunch of YouTube videos. There's a guy named Scott Myers who does a lot of teaching. He teaches more of a big city model. He's got a lot of stuff on YouTube. There's 2 or 3 podcasts as well. But again, it's just no different than any other niche. All the information is in the same kind of places. You just got to, decide that you want to learn about storage and go there. But I think ours is the best. I can't imagine. There's no way I would have done what I did without Mike's help, period. Right. And I think I'm pretty smart, but it's just a different thing. It's really a business.
Not necessarily. It's not really real estate. It's more of business.
It's taxed like real estate, which I love, but it's really a business. I'm really buying and fixing a business. And so there were just things about that business that I wouldn't have known, and I wouldn't have wanted to learn them the hard way. It was much, much safer for me to do this with Mike's help. And, always be grateful that it worked out like that, because this has been a real improvement in my work life.
Right. Well, that's awesome, man. I want to thank you for being on the line, and we're continuing to have questions come in here, but I want to honor your time. And so listen, guys, hopefully you are in the Lifeonaire app. It is free. You know this already. Hopefully start a thread. And we, just ask, we can call, start a storage thread. We can have Ken poke around in the app and answer those questions for you. And I'll tell you, man, like every time I hear more about this, I'm like, oh, I need to do this. And, I've been doing a lot of stuff with Lifeonaire recently. But the stage 4 potential of storage and the meeting the vision with the time and the energy, it's just like, I quite honestly don't know of a better option out there. I'm not aware of anything else that can compete with it.
Yeah, you don't want to do it, man. It's too much money and not enough work.
All right, everyone, have an awesome day. Thank you so much, Ken. We value your time and can't wait. I mean, dude, you're living the dream. Love it, man. We will catch you guys soon. Take care, everyone.
See ya.